Welcome to Agribusiness Talk with Dr. Peter Dan. In today's episode, I have Alakwemeka with me in the studio. Please introduce yourself to our viewers out there.
Thank you, Dr. Peter, for having me. My name is Alakwemeka. I'm a sociologist, I'm a development expert, and as well a social researcher.
Thank you for being with us today on the show.
Thank you very much.
On today's episode, we'll be talking on climate change, the myths and the reality in Nigeria. And we have in the house an expert in the topic of discourse. So, in the course of our discussion, we'll be delving into uh, climate change. We'll discuss a little about it, taking reference from COP29 and other realities that are there. We'll be talking to how this has led to agricultural losses. We'll be talking to how it has led to insecurities. We'll be looking at way forward as individuals. We'll be looking at what the government at various levels can do, the federal, the state, and the local government can do. We'll also be talking about how, as an individual, as a business, as an agribusiness, you can build buffer and how you can mitigate against the effect of climate change. Mr. Emeka, please, can you please talk to us about climate change? Is this what we should really bother ourselves about in the country as it is, or we should it's just another discussion just there on paper?
Okay, thank you once again. Um, First, I like the approach you have taken. Should this be what we should bother ourselves about? Certainly, yes. However, we would have to start from somewhere. The fact that we are still trying to understand if it's a myth or a reality tells that there is some level of information gap. And when this information gap persists, even at a time like this, then there's a bigger challenge. But to cut the long story short, climate change is a reality. It is something that should bother us because it is affecting almost everything that pertains to the most significant aspect of our life: food production and security. As a matter of fact, national security and human security. So it is a very, very significant stage or, phase of human existence as far as the planet Earth is concerned.
Okay, thank you very much. So we hear, of course, we read on social media, we watch news, and even recently the wildfire in California and all. Can you please tell us what are those uh, uh, elements, or what are those things we can attribute to this climate change? We know there are weather elements and the elementary definition of climate change that is, we can say maybe persistent change over a period of maybe 35 years. Those are elementary definitions we've been given by textbook. But can we say, okay, talk to the elements, uh, the varying characteristics, temperature, rainfall, humidity, and all. So can we maybe talk on a little of those attributes or those elements in Nigeria, if it's reality?
Okay, so because it's a reality, we must understand that though there are primary elements leading to climate change, we must understand that today, as far as our society is concerned, climate change is even is coming faster than we imagine. Why? There are more human activities that are undermining the Earth's surface and all of what nature has put in place to protect us. And when I say human factor, what do I mean? You see, the number of greenhouse gas emission that we have today is very much orchestrated by the activities of gas flaring,
Mm.
let me just say, largely industrialization. But you see, for Nigeria, we have our own unique factors. We must understand that to address these things, we must also understand the local challenges that we have. Human factors would also tend to go about our local production and our human economic system. You see, recently, Nigeria was tagged the poverty headquarters of the world.
Yeah.
That definition goes a long way in determining a lot of the things that are happening in our society, including climate change. You see, Nigeria has its stronghold agricultural system as its most potent economic system.
Mm.
But you see, this agricultural system is still practiced largely locally. And as long as a larger population of the Nigerian economy in the agri sector still does this practice in the local system, will continue to affect various aspects that triggers climate change. So when we talk about rainfall patterns, we see there are more rainfalls in the coastal region of the south, and there are droughts in the north. We must bend backward for the north to look at the challenges orchestrated by the Lake Chad Basin. It is drying up. It has been drying up since the 1980s up to today. There are droughts coming in even more. And then you go to the coastal regions where we have different patterns of rainfall. It is higher today, it is lower tomorrow, and then it is causing flooding. These floods is not only wiping away the surface of the earth and its productive capacity, but destroying infrastructures, destroying human factors that can even protect the earth. Remember, I said we do agriculture largely locally. Go back to these rural areas in Nigeria. You'll find people, as agricultural systems expand, we are felling trees. We are getting deeper into the forest zones just to produce. And we are exposing ourselves to the risk of climate change even more. So these are the unique issues we'll be looking at. COP29, other international treaties would have examined a whole lot in terms of the industrialization system, in terms of our neglect. But we must understand that our peculiar nature, our peculiar and local system are significant contributory factor to this problem.
Okay, that's well said. Okay, in recent time, we've seen farmers run back, leave their primary activities, crop production, or all. We've had pockets of herdsmen, farmer clashes, and others insecurities, some political and all. But can we say climate change also is leading to the insecurity in the north? You mentioned earlier that there's drought, the Lake Chad isn't drying up. So can we say that climate change is also one of the factors that is leading to insecurity in the north?
Okay, we can say categorically one of the major factors that have laid the foundation for climate for insecurities in Nigeria largely and in the north particularly is climate change. Let me take you back to something. The Lake Chad Basin that I spoke about covers countries within the Lake Chad axis.
That is Sahel region.
Yes, including Chad, Nigeria, yeah, and northern Cameroon, as the case may be. Most of these countries had one major agricultural system in fishing.
Mm.
Okay, now in the 1960s, there was about 200,000 metric tons of fish that these areas harness yearly. But as the Lake Chad begins to dry up, as the lake begins to dry up,
Yes.
you are seeing a pattern of people becoming unemployed, people having economic losses. Now, this is speaking only about the lake and the level of economic challenge that it's drying up and brought. Now, we're looking at people who also dependent on cultivation in terms of farming, not having enough rainfall. So because of that, the biodiversity of this region is affected. No proper pasture for nomads, no enough rainfall for farmers to cultivate, no, the Lake Chad has dried up, that fishing has dropped significantly, that you can hardly have 20,000 metric tons of fish. There is a unique pattern in all of this, leading to one thing: unemployment that will lead to restiveness. So you have two things now in this area. The fact that people are unemployed, they become hand to for terrorism.
Yes.
Because they are less occupied. Now, because people are looking for the scarce resources to just take advantage of, there are too much competition within the little. This will lead to the farmer herders clashes. So you see, the pattern of insecurity, the pattern of conflict in these areas is to a large extent associated with climate change. If we had responded to this from the early warning signs.
Okay. Although there are other arguments in some quarters that these insecurities, you have argued that we should tie primarily to climate change. Some arguments say that there are scarce natural resources there, and there are mineral resources there that people are struggling or mining to get. And then there's also some quarters also saying that it's been politically motivated, both locally and internationally. We heard the chief of army staff recently just giving some assertion that terrorism cannot continue in northern Nigeria if they are not getting external funding. You know, it said that, and that's of course that's outside the EU canopy. So, are you saying that climate change? I don't know. How do we tie this, or what percentage of the insecurity can we say okay? Because if mineral resources is part of what they are struggling for, then it means that agricultural losses or uh, the effect of climate change is just one little of it. So what percentage can you tie, or what is still your argument?
Okay, so everybody have the right to their understanding and approach. But you see, whether in some quarters they are getting to harness resources like gold and all of that they are mining, it's a different ballgame entirely. You see, the problem of lack of proper regulation of mining activities in Nigeria is a bigger challenge. If there was, why are people not just going? We still have the issues of pipeline vandalism in southern Nigeria.
Yes,
But the government have been able to control that to a large extent.
very true.
So what is holding the government from controlling the challenges associated with mining? So, but you see, let me take you back to something. From 2013, when we have the uprising of terrorism so much, up till 2015, 2016, when terrorism started receding and like the government said they decimated Boko Haram, we have seen that there is a reduction by military might. But can I shock you? I hope you know that military operations in the north is also causing bigger challenge of climate change. Because how much of our military operation is climate resistant? So, but that's a different discussion entirely. However, have the government made practical efforts to see that the huge population of young people in the north are not just gainfully employed, but are empowered probably through agriculture to become self-sufficient? That is number one. Number two, you should also be asking yourself, when we say there are droughts, when we say there are post harvest losses because of a lot of factors, what intervention of government do you see that is pragmatic in addressing these issues? What we have is a military operation that have suppressed them. But the primary factor that have initiated these things economically Geographically, have it been addressed? The United Nations, through USAID, is coming up with interventions that can help rebuild the lake chart. What is the level of government commitment across these countries to that plan? Because this primarily will help to re-engage the people.
Mm.
Go to the southern part of Nigeria. The few persons who are within the south-south region, creating problems through um, pipeline vandalism
Vandalism.
and all of that,
Yes.
a lot more are gainfully employed.
Mm.
Go to southern Nigeria, go to southeast. There are crude oil wells in southeast. Forget the current um, insecurity issues in southeast. But prior to now, why were they? Why didn't we have issues associated with pipeline vandalism and
Vandalism.
all of that in
Yes. In
southeastern
Southeast.
region of the oil blocks? The issue is engaging these young people, doing things that will take them back to their natural habitats,
Mm.
and that will help them harness the potentials of their environment, of the climate, and the nature of the system that are available to them. If it is farming, how many of the incentives get to the people, the local farmers themselves?
Themselves.
What level of mechanization are we bringing to them? What level of extension services are we bringing to these people? What is the nature of our crop yields that we bring to them?
Okay.
Sorry to cut you. Last year, as a matter of fact, in 2022, we had one of the worst flood situation in Nigeria.
Yes.
Do you know the effect of that flood?
The losses.
The little number of persons that still went to farm, their products were wiped off.
Mm.
People were still pushed back to hunger.
So whatever intervention must have been given, if they were, the climate change has also come. The effect of climate change has come to erode and
The
wipe it.
gains.
The gains
So
in
it
the
means we must tackle
in
climate
climate change.
change before we get
And
the
yes.
security that we deserve.
Okay. So from your analysis of the situation, one can say that aside the visible effects that we're seeing, what the visible effect that we're seeing is as a result of agricultural losses. So uh, we talk more to the insecurity, but we are not looking at what has triggered the insecurity, which in this case is that there are agricultural losses. There's loss of land that should be given to agricultural
Yeah,
production.
loss of
There's loss
livelihood.
of livelihood because, of course, the agricultural sector is not just production. It has a whole value chain
Yeah.
because people into processing, people into value addition, people into transportation, people into marketing. But the production is the primary base. So once there's no production, the other value chain will suffer. And the production is largely affected by the climate change. Because if I farm, say, 1 hectare of rice and it's eroded, next year I would not want to go into
Invest
that,
into that. Yeah.
invest into that. So that also now trickles down to insecurity. Because once a youth, and Nigerian population is about 68.4% youth population, right? People below the age of 30, and another large percentage hovering between 30 and 40, 45, right? And if they don't have what to do, and they must feed and survive. So whatever opportunity available to them, which may be vices, they will engage into it. So I haven't x-rayed this. So way forward, because sometimes some of these things are out there in the books. We keep saying, and one tradition we have in Nigeria is that we always know how to identify a problem. We always know how to do policies. We always know how to have meeting conferences and all. But practically, what can we do? What is the way forward? Now, I want you to talk to this in four various areas. One, as an individual. Number two, private sector involvement. Number three, government. And government, federal government, the state government, and the local government. Thank God for the local government autonomy. So it means that in nearest future, they will be getting their direct allocation. So what interventions, what do you think, what's the way forward that we can do? Because climate change is here to stay and it will continue. So we now just have to find a way to mitigate it. So what are the way forward?
So, as an individual, what I have done is to conduct research, understand the challenges which we have reeled out, But you see, the way out must be robust and must be practical. And the government must be sincere and must be pragmatic. When I say sincerity, is to say we must be honest with ourselves to say we want to address the problem. We cannot continue to do surface cleansing. If you're having a running stomach, you cannot say because of running stomach you wouldn't eat again. You address the cause of it, then you eat.
Yes.
Have we addressed the challenges? For me, one of the best things to do is that we must take from the positives that climate change itself presents.
Okay.
I hope you know that though we have changing rainfall patterns, we have increasing temperatures, rising temperatures,
Yes.
the case may be. Do you also recall that every year we hear that the Lagdo Dam is filled up and they are releasing water? Most of the flooding that we experience is always also associated with the release of water from the Lagdo Dam. So I ask myself every day, do we just collect water and release them? It's a continental problem. It's an African issue. We collect water and we are releasing the water from the axes that don't have water.
Hmm.
So
So the axis where there is water.
to the axis where there's water, coming from the axis where there's no water. The dam that collapsed in Meduguri or in
Yes.
Borno State
Yes.
last year had the warnings for a long time. But what does that dam do? Also collect water from the Lagdo Dam and gradually release
Releases.
and it goes away. If we want to run faster than climate change, we must begin to tap this resourcefulness. It means that we may not necessarily cry over lack of rainfall. Water is there. Can we receive them into this dam? And as our season, Nigeria has two major climate seasons: the dry
And the
and
rainy
rainy season.
season. Yeah.
As soon as we move into the dry season, can we begin to have irrigation farming?
And not release the water during rainy season.
Not release water during rainy season when we have need for it in dry season.
Yes.
What are we doing as a country?
Because there's a mix. The water gets released towards the tail end of the rainy season, where the downpour is even
It's even lesser.
So at that time, all the soil is already has absorbed so many water more than it can take again, and the downpour at that time comes once in a while, but very heavy.
Yeah.
So you now release water at that time.
So the argument might be the dams are filled up and can cause other catastrophe.
Yeah.
But the question is, how long more can we wait to build dams that can collect this whole water? Go to Egypt. I can't recall now, but there's a dam being built by this um, uh, Egypt and one other country to collect the levels of rainfall into a dam of how many cubic. I think in our next session we'll bring this to light. My mind just got to that because of the interventions we need to do. We need to begin to think towards this direction. Can we build? We are building railways. They are huge capital investments. If we want to save our country and the growing population, we want to send the people back to their ancestry, we must begin to take capital investments like building a larger dam that can collect this water. Not like the water we spend so much time in them. In dry season, we begin to release them into profitable ventures in agriculture. When people have their livelihood back, there will be fewer number of persons to be recruited into.
Okay, just to cut you. Capital investment in what? Investment is what in water is capital intensive.
Yes.
So who is this directed to? Is it the federal government or is it the state government?
We can always have a public-private partnership. The government and private sectors can come into it. It will be profitable. See, people are ready, only that they do not have the capacity. There are farmers who are willing but they don't have the necessities to do what they need to do.
Okay, is it possible?
Yeah.
So yeah, now we've talked about interventions where the federal government can come in this building down. So is it possible to have a private intervention in dam? Because you also talked about irrigation agriculture. So that means that is it possible to have a model where as a private individual you can come and invest in dam? Probably you identify an agricultural bed, right? That can do 2 seasons or 3 seasons. In Nigeria, you can do 3 seasons of maize or 3 cycles, better still. That is the right word.
Yeah.
Because for maize, at 90, there's even 60 days variety. So if you take 90 days, it means you can do 3 cycles minimum, right? So
Yeah.
you plant the first one, the second one. So can we say we have private investors that will come, link their dams to the existing dam if possible, and collect water and store. Where there's an arrangement where farmers, instead of investing heavily in buying a pumping machine and doing their own private irrigation year on year, can now pay a little, right, for services of these private dams that are situated in an identified farming belt. I think that is a good way to go if talking about dams. But now, having discussed dam, what other things can we do? Because, you know, aside flooding, there are other effects of climate change. Right? So, what other things can we do as an individual uh, and probably private sector, state government and local government? You've said that all hands must be on deck, which is very true. So, what other things can we do?
So we must improve awareness. But the problem with awareness, for me, it has to come with a different dimension: awareness and empowerment. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. You see, poverty is a big problem in Nigeria. You are telling somebody that there's climate change and that his or her activity is causing climate change because the person is looking for fossil fuel, for firewood, as the case may be. A kg of gas today is around 1,250.
I think it's a little above that, 1,004 or so, yes,
So,
1,004, depending
ranging,
on where you are buying.
depending where you're buying.
Ranging 1.2 to 1.5, depending on where you're buying from.
That is almost $1
Yeah,
in terms of our current
the
exchange rate.
current exchange is around 1,536,
So,
thereabout.
and we say we have more people.
And that's official. That's official exchange rate because at the black market is 1,655 as of today.
Okay. And we have about 130 million Nigerians living below poverty. It means that the man who has 1,250 would rather not feed gas, but use it to buy food, but then go to the nearest bush and bring down food. So what do we do? You are telling him by creating the knowledge that what you are doing is creating biodiversity loss. But the man is poor and cannot afford the gas in life.
And I heard kerosene is also expensive.
We're not even going to that direction because where do you even see it? The gas we're talking about, cooking gas, it's even cheaper
than kerosene. It's been a while.
So when we talk about utilization of these modern cooking methods, it is becoming an elite system, going far above the majority of the population. So what do we do? Can we have the government? We have the gas, whatever, being laid, pipelines being laid. How soon can we have this connected into our homes? Just like we have in other industrialized countries. So that people can subscribe to it, just like we do with power.
So if we strive to be industrialized,
yes,
that should be another key component that the government should look into.
Yeah, but what will not be lost is create awareness. Let people understand that, yes, this problem is here.
Yes.
But while we are doing that, we must begin to empower these people to live above poverty. Because as much as we keep having poor people
Mm.
will keep having climate challenges.
But I think this is another good place to call on the Ministry of Environment. We can call on them to say, okay, because it's going to be cross-cutting, both government, the national government, and the local ministries, of course, the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security coming into play, the Ministry of Environment coming into play,
Yeah.
as we discuss the climate issue, discuss insecurity.
Yeah.
So the Office of the National Security Advisor has to also look at this, so that these ministries can work together in partnership to see how these challenges that are here can be addressed. So to the Ministry of Environment now, part of what they do, because when it comes to awareness creation, the Ministry of Agriculture, of course, the National Orientation Agency should also come in.
Of course.
So
Of course.
in the agricultural space, what they do more of awareness sensitization as per project that may be coming per time. And of course, there's always a climate component around it. But there's little much that can do, because the programs and projects will target specific individuals, not the whole state. So we want to say, is it a good place to say the Ministry of Environment can come in and put in as part of the awareness creation campaign there? Because the truth is, in the long run, it will be difficult to stop, like call them peasant farmers or people living in the local rural area, to stop tree felling. But can you encourage them to plant?
Okay, so
As they fall or fell,
yes.
can they plant two to replace what they
The
want?
question is, what are they falling for?
Okay, we know now that they are, of course, they are falling most often for two major reasons. One, for their primary use, then two, secondary use. So the primary use is now they want to use it as cooking fuel directly. The secondary use is now they cut it and they pack it in such a way where they can monetize it for marketing. So they market to the secondary user because they are not the person using it, and that can be industrial use and also another private use. So we know that is there. But if we cannot stop that, can we see that, okay, free failing is here and we'll try to erode the tradition gradually? But can you plant two?
Okay, so
Can
now
you,
the problem is, there are the agricultural expansion
yeah,
would always lead to felling of trees.
yes,
Deforestation
yeah,
is the word.
yeah.
If you are telling them to plant, where are they planting? Is it where they are trying to expand to farm?
Okay, so for
No, why I'm bringing this
yeah,
is so that we understand the intricacies of this issue.
yes,
Industrialization and urbanization is coming closer every day to this rural area.
yeah,
You see, unfortunately, one of the major urbanization we see is the building of estates.
yeah.
Go along the Abuja city from the airport road through to the city center.
Massive tree felling, massive.
Go to the Murtala Mohammed road, that is along the Zuba Kopwa Express Road.
Massive tree felling.
You will find large expanse of land of estates building. So you have moved more people into the hinterland to continue to farm because they need to farm. So if you are telling them to replace, I feel we're not being fair to them.
For them.
So what, in my opinion,
Yeah.
is, again, it takes us back to the empowerment. Can we have a system in agriculture where certain sections or land portions will be allocated and say this is for agriculture? We call them agricultural zone.
Okay, yeah. You know, the SAPZ program, like Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone program,
Yeah.
has been on board. I think when they piloted, and at the moment they are going full fledged to about 3 or 6 states. Kano is involved, the FCT, Ogun State, right? 3 states. That's what I can remember now being involved, and they are going. Part of what they are doing is to create special zones, identify commodity of interest, comparative advantages of zones, and build zones around it and call it a belt. Although the program also has a component that delve into infrastructure building, the roads and electric infrastructure. So it tends to, as part of the component, do some of that, but it does not go into the nitty gritty of creating, if I understand you, is creating something like what you call a farm estate. So if we call it a farm estate or a town, like we have in France. So in France, as you travel state to state, they have some of those pockets of estates. So designed for agricultural production based on the comparative advantage. Nigeria as it were, we have about 774 local government, and each local government has a particular crop or commodity that it has its own comparative advantage over. So if we pick the local government area, for instance, and say this local government is known for, say, rice, can we have a farm estate, depending on the ward? So we now know that, okay, this place, there, though there'll be intensive cultivation, but it's designed for this. So outside these zones, it's not labeled agriculture. So this is agricultural zone, agricultural belt, right? Yeah. So no matter who you are, you don't go outside this place to do other agricultural activities. To curb, just like you have rightly mentioned, tree felling, which is because of agricultural expansion. Yeah. So we have about 70.4 million hectares of arable land, depending on the statistics. Other statistics is around 36.4. And we have about 14 million hectares of inland water. So we can cut pockets of this and form belts, and of course, tell farmers to stay within this belt to farm. So we have identified two probable solutions: the building of dams.
So before you, let me speak to this point that you have. You know, as a professional in this field,
Yeah.
you have all the terminologies to describe it.
Yes.
For me, as a development specialist, I want to be as simple as possible. You have named it agricultural, farm estate, whatever it is.
Yes.
Let me draw your attention. You know, in Enugu State, there is a place called Uzuwan. I am from a part of Enugu State um, called I'll go down, just my local village now, called Aku. But you see, majority of the farmers in this area do not farm their commercial agricultural outputs
There.
in the local Aku village.
Okay.
They go to Uzuwan. As a matter of fact, almost every of the major farmers in the Suka zone go to Uzuwan to farm. The problem we have is that the farmers' herders crisis has moved them back into the communities. But why I'm bringing this up is because that had served like this farm agricultural zone. Uzuwan produces one of the best rice in Nigeria.
Oh, wow.
Local farmers, I'm telling you, relatives who leave the village, go to Uzuwan, camp in Uzuwan, throughout the farming season, do their farming and return back to the village. So I'm saying this is possible. And with that, we have been able to protect the biodiversity of our localities, because apart from, of course, building of houses, people are making money now. Young people are coming to say, give me land, I want to build. Of course, well, all of those. But as far as agriculture is concerned, it is limited in that regard, because most of the farming is done in a particular settlement, not affected in general.
Okay, so two things I would draw from that. The government, since we have issues of flooding, build more buffer on our existing dam, encourage private individuals to come into dam, and of course get a way to get farmers linked to them so that they can always use this water, and encourage more of irrigation farming, because this will trickle down to making available a lot of food for the whole year, and of course reduce the food import bill, making more produce available for industries that are here. Number two, create awareness, right, so that people know that this tree falling that you engage in for farm for the purpose of getting fuel and your agricultural activities have a way of leading to climate change. Is it possible to build to have farm estate, or restrict agricultural activities, production activity in a particular area, and also restrict the processing activity to another particular area? So what other things can we do? Of course, when it comes to creating awareness, it's cut across everybody in both the government, private individual, and the state government.
Yeah.
Building dams can be cross-cutting.
Yeah.
So, what other thing do you think we can do to uh, also address the issue of climate change? Is there any other thing?
Okay, so largely, if we can even do 70 to 80% of these recommendations we
Yeah.
have made, would have been able to set Nigeria on the path of recovery from the challenges of climate change. Other things we now want to do is to um, sustain the gains. So what do we do to for sustainability is what we'll now be looking into. We're now going to have policy frameworks
Mm.
that will address um, issues that come up in the future. Our agencies must now sit up. We must not only come up with the period where we say rainfall, flood zones, people living in the flood zones should
Mm.
move. We
Mm.
must go beyond these things and say, if by 2030 we will have more rainfall in these areas,
Mm.
we must start now to begin to build resilient systems. It starts from policy systems and having our agencies. The current government came up with the climate change, what do they call it again? That is domiciled with the presidency.
Mm.
I've not heard the climate commission for climate. I've not heard of the activities of that commission at all. So the last time I heard of it was the envoy, Nigeria envoy to climate change,
Yeah, yeah, the
that resigned from his position, Ajuru Ngilale.
mm.
And since then, we have not heard anything. I thought that with such coming in, we begin to have hands-on and practical steps towards policy systems that can reflect the direction of change. It's not about going to attend COP29, COP30,
Mm.
and go with lots of people. What are we doing? Are we putting down policies that will help address human behavior, that will help address and make our agencies work effectively for sustainability purposes? If we have these dams working, can we maintain them? Of course, what led to the collapse of the dam in Borno State? Lack of
Lack of
maintenance.
maintenance.
But the dam was there.
Mm.
So if we build more dams, what then happens? Sustainability is a factor. We must look into that area.
So other things we can also look at, right, just to add to what you have rightly mentioned, is that there must be increased intentionality. The government must be intentional about dealing with some things. We don't have any other country to call our own but Nigeria, of course. And no matter how you travel at all, the Japan or there comes a time you want to come back to your home because you go abroad, there are lots of jobs you're subjected to or you're forced to do. In the long story short, there's no other country but Nigeria that is ours. And the government, I would say, should stop playing politics with what affects her own people. I mean, the president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, should of course know that it is your people, it is Nigeria. We are not Cameroonians, we are not Americans, right? So even if it does not affect you being in government space one way or the other, but it's affecting your people. We are kindred in a way, one way or the other. So one way is we have the Maputo Declaration, right? 2006 or so, if I'm correct. Give 10% allocation, budgetary allocation to agriculture. I doubt if we're even up to 2% now. Because if we give this percentage to agriculture, farms can actually be protected. Because we already know that there are water pathways. So it's a matter of building canals. It's a matter of expanding the current canals that will protect our farms. Because you can't invest one way through policies, the agricultural promotion policy, the President Jonathan's agricultural transformation policy. We've had several policies. The current SAPZ program, another project both from NGOs and all, put billions of dollars by way of investment to human capital development and crop production investment. then you just come, flood just come and pack it away. So it brings us back to square zero.
Yeah.
There is, you will not even get one. It's zero. We're going back to, because we have to start cultivating again. And most of these farms are not insured. We have the agricultural insurance. There's an agency for that, and now that's not coming to my head. Right? Some of these farms are not insured. So we will now be saying, okay, National Orientation Agency. If this is not part of your purview, okay, the Ministry of Agriculture, you have a communication desk. So as government tries to, because sometimes when you tell government increase budget, the question even me want to ask, if I was the president, now taking the side of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is to say, the one we have given you, what have you done with it? Because sometimes we know that the budget release may not be up to what is budgeted for. But the one released, how was it spent? So when we try to x-ray some of the expenditure, the recurrent and the capital expenditure, we say more money wired into recurrent expenditures. So we see government functionals and other, but doing more of hotels, doing more of travels, doing more of honorarium than what goes to the farmer. So government has to increase, stick to the Maputo declaration, do 10% budget allocation to agriculture. Then we are talking climate change. It's here, it's going to get worse. So build buffers. Now, canals can be built, right? Canals can be built along the agricultural belt so that as this water is coming, it has a where it's flowing through. And of course, these are capital investment, and the government has to come in to do that.
So just to draw attention, I like the fact that you are taking the approach and recommendations from a professional angle as an agri expert, an expert in agribusiness. We must also remember that there is a conference of parties, and there are agreements that are binding on
Each party.
yeah, especially um, member states.
Yes.
So the COP29 had one major resolution amidst other resolutions that developed countries would commit $300 billion to developing countries to mitigate
The
climate
effect
change
of
by 2035.
let me get that. They will commit that by 2025, or
From
from now
now
they
up
should
to
have committed up
2035,
to that.
yes,
Okay.
$300 billion.
To all developing countries. So if we say that Africa and the Caribbean are not
Yes,
inclusive.
most.
Okay.
And this is because through the divide,
Mm.
we are contributing more now to climate change. This is a different discussion altogether because we're not even half as industrialized as they are. But that's not the issue. Where I'm headed with this is most of the leaders of these third world countries have always relied on attending this come that come. Would they listen to your recommendation, which is easier, if they go to implement these things? Not only would it abate the challenges, it will give us food sufficiency.
Yes.
It's one thing we lack. So, but the issue now is we have a bigger challenge currently. President Donald Trump has a man. He was inaugurated. He has been inaugurated and he has taken over as the 47th United States president. He's not a fan to the reality of climate change.
And also, it's not a fan to dishing out money to people.
As a matter of fact, he's on the verge of an executive order taking US finances
from UN,
from
from climate specific
yes, commitments.
So
if the US, for instance, pulls out,
where will the money go?
So that takes us back to your point. I'm really raising this issue so that we can become very local in our approach.
Yes. So please, I will allow you to continue that. When they, because I was reading on the news, I saw how some people were saying the money was too small and blah blah blah. And from where I sit, I say there's a lot of, for instance, in Nigeria, Though I still argue with the fact that most of the interventions is skewed to the north because other parts of the country also need that interventions. But most of the agricultural interventions skewed to the north. We want to ask because I've been privileged to be involved in a lot of these projects. And some question I ask is huge money budgeted. The farmers are still complaining the same complaint. I've been doing it over 10 years, over the same thing, same complaint. So is the money looted? Can we say it's looting? Or is the money, is there a mixed match? Such that because that will also happen to the climate funds, even if they give us $1 billion. Okay, what happens to the loot that comes back? That's just another discussion. So now narrowing it down to the climate funds, even if this money comes, will it go to what is meant to be? Because by the time they do the budget allocation and what will now build the canal is little than the money that transported the materials to the canal. You now see that. So now to also further support the point of your resolution, what you're saying about that is we have to now begin to look at how to innovatively mobilize domestic resources. That's the point. How do we innovatively mobilize
We must
domestic
look
resources?
inward.
Can we now say this is our country?
Mm.
Because all the whole thing we keep saying Donald Trump is saying
Mm.
around American face, he's not the only one saying American face, just that he's the one that is more loud. They have always been by for prioritizing their interests, just that he's making more vocal. So can Nigeria take the issue of climate change
Seriously.
and how it has resulted in insecurity due to job losses, unemployment, agricultural loss, agribusiness losses,
Mm.
How it has resulted to this? Can we now take it serious? Can we take it serious and say, let us deal with this head on? Yeah, we know one episode or one discussion, one session may not be enough to exhaust all the issues, but we can take in for some conclusion, and we have been able to establish that climate change is tied to agricultural losses and it's also tied to insecurity one way or the other.
Mm.
We've also tried to provide some solutions that we can begin to implement it on. And again, we also say, just like you said, yeah, we say move out of the floodplain prone areas. Yes, it's still, till government begin to be serious with other things, it's still a recommendation for the now, so that you don't lose your properties and all. Just 2 weeks ago, I was with a farmer in Abuja who all his farm, all the rice he cultivated last cropping season went to flood. Every money he invested. So he's just starting again afresh. Although he's been a farmer over the years, but this loss was a huge one. It was due to flood. You know. So
So as we round off, sorry,
yes,
doctor, I
yes.
must emphasize that we will not sit back and begin to annotate
Mm,
where the monies are going.
mm,
Would only be open to see there must be, we must address fiscal recklessness
mm,
in Nigeria. Then we must imbibe the culture of proper monitoring and evaluation. I know you're a specialist in this area,
yeah.
and I'm speaking categorically
Mm,
on this fact. Look at the organic cleanup that was started in 2016 by
mm,
the Buhari administration. In 2024, the government set up a system to go and see what is happening. So you see, this is local to us. The funds, of course, we took loans
some support.
to finance that. How, if we are not meticulous with this,
Mm,
how much more the funds that are coming? So what I'm saying is monitoring proper. Let me
monitoring.
just take you to one very simple thing. And this is not to sing the praise of anybody. But the current FCT minister, for instance, Governor Yesom Wike,
Yes.
I think a few days after the Christmas, I saw him supervising or coming to evaluate the level of work done, I think, along the Apple axis, whatever. Ordinarily, we would have said it's festive season, everybody should rest. But within the festive season, like last year, I saw him going to monitor what was going on. If we can have a leader that is as
That
involved in projects, then we can do same for other things, regardless of what the project is about.
now that you have mentioned, yes, okay, I think the Abuja Environmental Protection Board, I don't know what they do, but I mean, so Abuja gets hot. So as part of the climate change that is happening, Abuja is getting hot.
Let's first clean up Abuja. Then we'll talk about the weather.
You know, but
Because
they should
is,
plant trees for
Abuja
us
is dirty
as it is
as
now.
it were.
But no, they all they've been doing over the years is cleaning Abuja. So and they are cleaning and they still
Sweeping the road.
sweeping the roads,
In the city
the
center.
city center, and of course they leave the suburbs. They just clean some patches. So when they remember, so credit to them that they at least we see people cleaning. But they should please try to plant more trees. Abuja is getting hot. It's
Very,
getting hot.
very.
It's getting hot. The temperature is increasing. So we don't have much time. We hope to have you another day, another time in this show uh, to discuss further on these issues and also provide more practicable solution. It's been a nice time having you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so very much.
All right. This is another episode. If you've not watched the previous episode, with the previous episode, we looked at the overview of agricultural uh, business in Nigeria. So if you've not watched that, you can quickly watch that so you can follow the series, so that when you eventually decide to take a decision in investing, you will have looked at some of the bottlenecks we've addressed and how to mitigate it and also cushion the effects that may arise. So please do well to like, do well to subscribe, and do well to recommend. And more importantly, invest in Nigeria, invest in the agricultural business. There's an episode we dedicate to agricultural insurance and risk management. So I want you to look out to watch that so that you'll not be scared of investing in agriculture. Thank you very much for your time.